guys, welcome back to Real Talk with J&J, Season 2, Episode 3. We are just honestly having so much fun this season. It's more relaxed, more of us talking about just our personal experience. Everything's been our personal experience, but I think it's just more laid back and a more chill environment where we are like actually having conversation with you. So
like this is how it would be if you were hanging out in our living room right now. We have a super cool view, but then we get to like actually just kind of talk to you about what we're thinking, you know?
Yeah. In my mind, I feel like it's like an intimate setting where we are just one-on-one with you and kind of just pouring out our hearts and pouring out what we have been through and kind of just like giving you encouraging advice. This is how I see it. And today we are going to be talking about goal setting and the importance of goal setting, right?
Yeah. Like since we've gotten married, every year we do this thing, and we kind of inspired from our church to do like a vision retreat, where we sit down and we evaluate the last year. How do we, achieve the goals that we had set? What were our goals? And then we kind of look at our future in increments of like 20 years down the road, like 5 years in front of us, and then this next year. And we take those goals and we're able to kind of get a perspective of like, are we doing the things that we want to do to get to our 20-year goal? And if not, like, do we need to change some stuff? Is our 5-year plan in line? Or do those things make sense? Are they reasonable? Is that still what we want based on what we've learned in life and stuff like that? And so I think it's so important when we get into this topic to understand how impactful goal setting is in our life, because I think it really helps give us a roadmap and it helps us understand, are we tracking in the right direction? Are we totally off? Were our goals too lofty to, when we were 18 versus now? Were our goals the same as we've gained some more life experience? And it's really important to start this practice while you're young and understand. I think, again, everything we like to talk about, we like to go back to our personal experience, but also like to bring scripture into it. And, one thing that one of our good friends spoke this verse to us was Proverbs 16:9, where it says that we can make our plans. We can set goals, right? If I'm paraphrasing, but the Lord will determine our steps. So I think it's biblical to have goals, to set goals, to evaluate your life in a sense of, here's where I want to go. Here's the milestones of how I want to get there. And so as we talk today, we want to give you some pointers and things that we've learned so far. And again, this is just from our personal experience. We don't know everything yet, but this is what we have learned, and we want to share this with you.
And my personality trait, I'm an Enneagram 3. So I'm a planner.
If you don't know what the Enneagram is, I don't know either because I've never taken it.
Well, I'm a 3. So I'm a planner, and that's just one of the attributes. But I love to know what's going to happen. Like, I like to plan things and make sure that this is going to happen. And if it doesn't, what can I do to make it happen?
Yeah.
And just like the scripture, going back to the scripture, just because I am a planner, I've learned and I'm learning that just because what I have planned doesn't mean that's what God has in store for me. Yeah. Right. So it's good to be able to have a plan, but if it needs to be readjusted to line up what's really good for you or what's supposed to happen for you, it's good to be flexible and readjust.
Yeah. One caveat before we even dive into this is all of our goals can be adjusted.
Yes.
And they should be based on as we learn, as we grow. Like when you're 16, 17, you might not be thinking about marriage yet. You might not know when that's going to happen. And you can't just say, well, when I'm 27 and a half years old, I'm going to get married. And like, that's not how life works. But
that's what I thought. That's how I was.
Like, you want to know those things. But at the same time, as each year, I think that's why it's really good to take inventory each year of like, what was the last year like? How did that move me towards my goals? Where do my future goals need to be readjusted? And then kind of, keep that track record.
Yeah, for sure. And we talked about why goal setting is important. And I think the next step is, how do you identify where you should start your goals? How should you set it?
What should I set goals for?
Yeah.
Like in your life, I guess when you were 16 years old, what were like your goals? Like what did you know?
Honestly, 16, I'm in high school. My goal was to go to college, right? That was one of my goals. But like I said, I'm a planner, I'm a thinker. So I had my life planned out, right? I thought I was going to go to school. to get my degree in biology so I can go to dental school. And after dental school, I become a doctor, and then I'm going to start dating around, and then we can talk about getting married and having kids. And you know what? That didn't happen.
No.
Because that's not the plan that God had for my life. And I'm so happy that I met my husband in college before.
Well, she was a business major.
Okay. If I want to go deep into that, like, we'll have a conversation off of here, because it's so much that I can go on and about. But I tried to do biology, and I'm gonna break it down, right? I signed up to do biology for Oral Roberts University. I hated every single minute of it. I loved the people. The people were great. And if I met you in biology class, shout out. I remember struggling together, but I loved you and I loved the teachers, but it just didn't feel like I loved learning the content too. Honestly, it just didn't feel like I was supposed to be doing it. It wasn't fulfilling. It was just like, I hated every moment of it. I questioned of like, why am I here studying this? Like, I just want to go back home and work for my dad, literally. And it wasn't until Christmas break, and I was like, God, why would you send me back? This was terrible. I hated it. This is not what I think it was. And he was like, did you even pray about what you're supposed to be doing? And I was like, well, no, because I have my plan already set out. I'm going to do this. And in order for me to do this, I need to study biology. And he was like, no, you need to do business. And, I did business. And how that happened, it like I'm telling you, like, God did extraordinary things and made things happen that
we make our plans, but he establishes our steps.
He made something happen that I couldn't have done on my own. And I got into my business classes, and literally it was a complete 180. As soon as I got into that, I felt alive. Like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I enjoyed every minute of it. And this is where we're going to come back to, like, yes.
And this is why it's important to be able to adjust your goals. Because sometimes you may make a goal and you may realize that actually, I don't really care to accomplish that goal. I don't really think that that's a goal that's going to put me, and there's tiers of goals, right? There's your main goals in life. There's subset of goals. There's different types of goals. There's your goal this week. Yeah. Like, there's your goal to go to the gym. There's different types of goals, but overall, like, and when I think of goals that we make, I want to think about, my faith. I want to make sure that the goals I make are in line with my faith, that it's driving me towards God. My family, that, it's helping where me and Jasmine are going to be in our future. My finances, that, hey, do we have money in the right spots? Are we being good stewards? And those are kind of like, for me, like, yeah. And then fitness, I think, is another one of just like, I want to live a healthy life. And even starting this year, kind of one of my goals, like, overall, that's an overarching goal. I haven't done very good with that. And so starting 2023, it's like, I'm really trying to focus on how do I, be well-rounded in all those areas, but it requires goal setting. And when we talk about this idea of where should you set goals, for me, it's those areas, right? My goals should align with those areas at some point.
Like, what are your core values? Start gathering, think about it. Like, what are your core values? What's most important for you? And what do you need to achieve these things? And,
and get perspective of people that are older than you, people that are wiser than you. Proverbs talks about that a lot of times our plans fail because we don't have counsel. But if we do have counsel, if we talk to, sometimes your parents have a lot of great advice. They have been through life. They've been around a lot longer than you have, and they will have some things that they've learned that are good ideas for you to think about. But sometimes, whether it's your teachers in school, whether it's your professors at college, whether it's your coworkers, like,
utilize the people in your life.
Yeah. Understand where they've been, and then go research, like, for me, I get into God's word. I'm like, how are my goals? Like, I want to set goals that are actually going to be, fulfilling in life. And when you figure out those things, that's where you identify where you should set goals. You don't need to set goals for everything. Maybe you do. Maybe you're like a super OCD planner and you want a goal for how many like dollars you need to spend at the grocery store, which is part of budgeting. So I guess that is technically a goal. Or you want like a goal for how many steps you want to walk in a day, part of fitness. I mean, people have goals for a lot of different things, and that's okay. But what's your overarching goals? And do those subset of goals fit into that? And how do they, so that you're not overextending yourself when it comes to goals?
Exactly. And so once you identify where you should set goals, it's also important that you're going to go to this next step of what should you think about when you're setting these goals. So, right, you already set your goal of what you wanted to do. So now what are the things in line up?
The practical steps to get there. Like, sometimes we set a goal, like I want to be happy in life. Okay. Like, let's say that's what your goal is. How?
What are the steps of you being happy?
What makes you happy? Yeah. What makes you happy? What is being happy? What makes you happy? You might need to change some things to help you get in those goals. Or, maybe your goal is, I want to have a family. I want to do these types of things. I want to feel the love from my family. I want to build a life with somebody that is my forever partner. Those are things that you're thinking about. And when you set these goals, I always say, let's be practical. And let's think about realistically, how do I achieve this goal? And for example, it's easy to talk about finances, but like if you in your head, like, hey, I want to make $100 million a year and I want to live in a $40 million mansion, and maybe that's your goal, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. How? Like, you need to start thinking about the practical steps. Like, well, first of all, you're going to need to generate some source of income. So how are you going to generate some source of income?
Probably multiple sources of income.
So you're going to have to not just focus on one. You're going to have to figure out, I need this many sources of income. I need to figure out X, Y, and Z. I need to figure out a network of relationships. Maybe going to college and getting that network is the way to go. Maybe I go a different route and I go right into professional networking relationships and stuff like that. Like, again, there's different ways to accomplish goals. So don't ever get so set on your way as the only way to accomplish a goal, because over time, I believe your perspective should change on how to accomplish some of the goals in your life.
Yes, exactly. And then also, once, like you said, you already have your goal, you're thinking through the steps of what you're doing, right? But once you think of those steps, write those steps down, but also be consistent about it. Yeah. If you're writing these steps and you just have it there, like, oh, this is my goal and I have these steps down, but you don't even look at it or you don't even abide by it, then really think, is this something that's even important to you? If it's not that important to you, why are you going to take the time to go through all these things, right? But if it is important to you, be consistent about it. Be thinking about it. And
that's why it's important to know your core values, because it's easier to know what is important to you when you know the main core. But if you keep the main thing, then other goals, if they line up with that, great. If they don't, it's maybe not something that you need to do. I mean, it makes it a lot easier to decide that. Another thing about writing it down, though, is it helps you, again, I talk about this word a lot, track record. It helps you see where you're at when you're tracking these goals. How well have I achieved these goals? Where can I be better? It opens up the floor for you to be introspective, for you to really examine where you're at and how you're doing. And then to maybe recalibrate and readjust, realign. Sometimes you have a hard year and you learn a lot in that year, but it helps you shape how my goals will change in the future.
But then also too, let's say you did that and you accomplished those goals. I think something that's important, especially for me, is once I accomplish a goal, I'm not content with that. I'm so excited that happened, but what's the next step? What's the next goal? Because I want to continue to be a better version of myself. So I want to continue to be better on things. So I'm always every year adding a different goal, and I'm making sure I'm achieving it. And if I don't get to achieve it within the year, the time frame that I originally planned, I'm not going to just give up on it. I'm going to make sure with time I'm going to achieve it. And I know if it wasn't this past year, well, let me let it roll over this next year and let me achieve it. And then I can go through with my next goal, right? You don't ever want to just be content of where you are right now. There's always going to be a better version of you. There's always going to be a lot of things that you can learn.
And grow in. And I think like for me, so kind of to set it here is, and I talked about these earlier, but faith. I examine my goals when it comes to faith. Like for me, it's important that I'm reading the Bible. It's really important that I am growing in my faith, that I'm growing in my understanding of who God is and how he wants me to treat people, how I'm supposed to have a relationship with him. Those are things. And so when I set goals to read the Bible or to go to church or to go to a Bible study or go to these different things where I'm moving in that goal, that's important to me. When it comes to family, marriage, am I taking time to, when I set goals for marriage, am I getting wisdom from people that have been married longer? Am I reading books? Am I getting resources? Am I counting the cost? Am I understanding the value of how to set goals within marriage? Whether it's being kinder to my wife, whether it's being a better listener. There's different goals you can have over time.
And I think when you become married, a lot of like the goal setting and your goals are kind of together.
Yeah.
You're going to have a little bit of separate things because you are your own individuals, but and most important, you are one. So a lot of your goals are going to be, you're striving together to get to somewhere. But then also you can have like your own personal fitness goals. Like I'm not 6 foot your weight or whatever like that. Like I'm my,
and thanks for not telling everyone my weight.
I'm my own like physical body. I'm female, he's male. Like we have different things, right?
Yeah.
So we are going to have some different ones, but the main goals are going to be together.
And I think the whole point is, what should you think about when you're setting goals? You should think about the practical aspects of how you're going to achieve that goal. You should think about the personal, like, right? Sometimes when we look at our goals in totality, if we're so focused on making money that we lose sight of having faith, that we lose sight of having the right relationships around us. So these are also things to think about. Sometimes we need to have a balance across these things. We can do all of these things. Sometimes we need to break it down to hours, but at the same time, we need to make sure that our goals stay balanced. And that's why when we say, really think about these things, really think about the career path that you think you need to take, and how practical is that? How practical is that with also having a family?
I love that you said that too. Cause like, honestly, you can have all the money in the world. You can have all the success in the world. But if Joshua's not in the picture or if my family's not in the picture, none of that matters. Like your loved ones and your spouse is very, very important. And like, I feel like that's a success in life.
Yeah.
Like building your relationships, like
having healthy relationships.
That's a big success in life. Like you don't want to do life alone. Like you see this all the time with celebrities and with famous people. Like they have all the money in the world, but yet they're depressed, they're sad, they don't have anyone to spend it with. And if they do have some people to spend it with, it's people who want them for their money, not for who they are. And don't get lost in that.
Yeah. And that's not every situation,
No.
But like a lot of times you do see people that have a lot of money or they have a lot of status, but they are missing some other things. And so it's so important that when we're setting goals, we need to be balanced, because at the end of the day, like, and even when we talk about faith, I don't want to gain the whole world and lose my soul. I don't want to have everything I could possibly have in this world, but not have a real relationship with my creator. And so those are things that are important to me, that it's like, at the end of the day, we need to make sure we are thinking about the aspects of these goals and how they relate to one another. And like when you think about your career path, right? You think about, I want to follow this career path. Well, what is that going to mean for your time savings in the future? What is that going to mean for how much money you are going to make? Or what kind of house do you want to have? What kind of car do you want to drive? What kind of lifestyle do you want to live? Do you want to be a missionary? Do you want to like have 5 or 6 kids? Do you want to have 1 or 2? Like those are things that you need to kind of think about and understand so that you can plan for the future. And so that as you know, when you're going through this journey of life, obstacles and situations are going to come up. But if you know what your goals are, you're not going to just change. You're going to figure out how to get past that obstacle. When you know what your goal is, when something doesn't align with that goal, you know when it's not for you. And it's so important that we have that correct perspective.
And also with that, like to add on to it, it's so important, like that you are not a yes man, that you can't take on everything that people are trying to put on you, right? I think it's important to distinguish like, okay, this is my goal and this is how I'm getting to it. If something in life is continued to try to add on to your plate and you can't hit your goals because you're adding so much things, you have to realize when to say no.
And that's so good that when we know our goals, we know what we can say no to.
Yes.
Sometimes when we don't know our goals and we just want to do everything, we take on too much and we don't accomplish anything because it's
like we start so many things and we put 25% or 15% towards everything except and you never get to your full potential or finish completing these things because you have so many things you're trying to attend and you don't even get to give your full undivided attention to it. And you can be multitaskers, yes, but I think it's super important to like not just say yes to everything. You have to say no to some things. And honestly, it's hard because like I said, I'm Enneagram 3. I'm a people pleaser. I like to please people. And you have to realize like you can't please everyone.
Yeah.
You can't please everyone.
And there's a verse, and I believe it's in Luke, where it talks about like before you go and do a project, you need to count the costs. When we set goals, we count the cost. We start to think about the different costs, the different time savings. Yes. That's why we know, hey, I can't add this. For instance, if you're building a custom home and your budget is $500,000, you know that, hey, I might not be able to add this thing because I've counted the cost. I know what I can do.
Upgrade.
Yeah, like those are important things. When you set goals, you know what costs you can have and what costs you shouldn't or what you don't need because that doesn't align. Yeah. And again, this is why over time you can adjust your goals, you can learn different things because your costs might change. And so like those are the important things that we're thinking about. Yeah. But I think like in our life, that goal setting is so important because it helps keep us in perspective of where we're going. It helps us talk about what we're doing and is that in line with what our goals are. And it gives us the opportunity to see, hey, we have done some things that we've talked about and we haven't. And so how do we move forward in that?
And it's a form of accountability, right? Like if you have something written down that you want to accomplish, it's like if you're not heading towards that way, it helps you like redirect yourself. Yeah. And then also like it just, I don't know, to me, it's a source of accountability. If I think of a goal and I never write it down, or if I never tell Joshua, if I don't do it, it's just like, oh, well, like no one knows about it, you know, like no one, only me. And,
Yeah, but it's so important. Like when we have goals together, we're both accountable for those things. When we say that now opens the door for you. When I say, hey, babe, I want to do this. You're like, hey, have you been doing that? Hey, like, are we, you know, and sometimes that's annoying. Like, oh, why are you telling me what to do? But it's like, no, I've opened the door for that.
Yeah.
And so like, I mean, what we want you guys to really understand is when you're setting goals, get counsel. Get perspective of people that know more than you do. Understand that you be humble to know that you don't know everything, but at the same time, be practical enough to start setting goals, to start evaluating what your core values are, to start knowing that the goals that I want and the places I want to go are going to require certain steps that I need to take, and then start writing those down, start planning, start adjusting them year over year. I always tell people, think in 20 years from now, what do you think?
We're going to have a different perspective.
Yeah. And so
for sure.
I can plan 20 years from now right now, but in 20 years, my perspective is going to be completely different. But at the same time, I set that 20-year, but then I also bring it back to 5 years. So realistically, what's moving me in the direction of that 20-year goal? And then even farther, what's 1 year? Like, what are the goals I want to do this year that help me get to my 5-year goal? That way it's much more broken down, much more practical. And when we do that, we're able to start to see some of our goals be accomplished. We're start to see ourselves move in the right direction, and we see if we're not moving in the right direction.
Yeah. So guys, we are just wanting to encourage you to, if you do not have any goals set, think of something that you want to do. Think of goals that you want to accomplish or what you want to accomplish.
Identify your core values.
Yes. And start from there. Make it be simple. If you have never done this before, you don't have to start all the way up here. Start somewhere small and then go from there. And then, like we always say, if you have a goal that you set and you've accomplished it, or you are seeking counsel, like reach out to us. We want to talk to you. We want to speak to you. We want to know you. And we're just so grateful that we get to have conversations with you about things that we've learned or continue to learn.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate you guys watching. Make sure if you haven't, like, subscribe, share this content with someone that you think may need to hear it, or rewatch it again yourself. Again, as Jasmine said, give us your feedback. We love to hear from you guys. You guys are the reason that we do this. Until next time, love you guys.
Bye, guys.